Hello, my name is Espen Scarborough. I'm an RA here in Nickel Hall. I'm studying education and history with a minor in religion, and these are your weekly prayer announcements. Vespers will be in person at the PUC Church tonight, so don't miss out. And the deadline to turn in scholarships is April 16. Make sure you get them in.
I trust in you. Pacific Union College, we are on day number 5 of our week of prayer. And again, the theme for this week is Thrive Again. And it's my hope and prayer that something that has been shared during this week has resonated with you, has encouraged you, has empowered you, has challenged you. And so again, it's an honor for me to be able to share with your college, your campus. And thank you again for that opportunity. Just as a quick review, on day number 1, we talked about anchoring your identity in God. Day number 2, we talked about taking your next step, whatever that is for you in your life. Day number 3, we talked about the gift of forgiveness, forgiving yourself and forgiving other people. And then day number 4, we talked about leading your relationships well. And I dove into that narrative and story of Jesus connecting with the woman at the well. And today we're talking about laying down your excuses. If you and I are going to thrive again, we have to be willing to lay down our excuses. So that's what we're going to talk about. And when I look at the last year, there have been so many opportunities where we see problems, but there really are possibilities. And so I want you to think about what excuses have become roadblocks to you moving forward and becoming the man or woman that God is calling you to become. And are we willing to have the courage to lay down our excuses, especially in this complex time, so God can move us forward in the plan and purpose that He has for us? So today, day number 5, we're talking about laying down your excuses. I want to take you to an incredible story. This is found in John chapter 5. So if you want to check out John chapter 5 today, or you can check it out later in the week, but this is John chapter 5, and it's the story of Jesus healing the man by the pool of Bethesda. And so as you look at the context, Jesus is walking with his disciples, and he comes to this pool of Bethesda, and the scripture describes this pool as having these colonnades and a beautiful roof and gardens, and the sick and the lame and the physically ill would meet at this pool every day and be brought to this pool with the hope of being healed and being physically restored. And so Jesus, in essence, he walks onto the scene of a hospital with a little bit of hope that if people can come to this place, there is a miracle healing that will take place here by the pool. So Jesus walked onto this scene, and scripture talks about in John chapter 5 that Jesus saw a man who had been in his condition for 38 years. And when Jesus saw this man lying there, Jesus asked this man a question that to me is a no-brainer question. Jesus said, "Do you want to be made well?" And then Jesus commands this man to get up, take up your bed, and walk, which he does. And then the rumors begin to spread about this healing, and there is a huge amount of criticism because Jesus healed a man on the Sabbath. And I think it's important to recognize that Jesus is always about pushing and changing culture to be better. And I think it's a reminder for all of you who are students at Pacific Union College that you are leaders, and leaders build culture. And you are not just about morphing to the culture in the room, you are about building the culture in the room and making the culture better. And culture really is the environment in which things can grow and develop. So I just want to remind you, I think number 1, that you're a leader. And if nobody has ever told you that, I want to tell you that today and speak that into your life. You are a leader called by God to use your unique wiring and gifts to make a substantial impact on this world. And as a leader, you are a builder of culture. You help shape the environments that people and things can grow and develop. So I would challenge you, always be a leader who is attempting to move culture to a place of greater health. So Jesus, he was pushing on culture, and he got criticized for that. So when you think about this story, we are talking about laying down excuses, and you may wonder, what does this have to do with this story of Jesus meeting this man at the well? So let's just talk through this story real quick. Jesus comes onto the scene. Again, the man had been in this condition for 38 years, unable to care for himself, unable to get dressed in the morning, unable to take himself home in the evening, or really probably attend to his hygiene throughout the day. So this man had been in this condition for 38 years, and Jesus sees this man. And I want to just pause there for a moment, and I want you to think about this. I believe the miracle in this story, it started when that man who had been in that condition for 38 years, he knew that he was seen. There is something so powerful when you and I know that we are not invisible, that what we are going through, the struggles, the challenges, especially in the last year, that we do not struggle alone, that Jesus recognizes, he sees what we are going through, and he can relate to our experiences, especially our struggles. So just as Jesus saw the man who had been lying there for 38 years, Jesus sees you. And I just want to pause there for a moment. Jesus sees you. And I know for many of you, you are going through a lot right now. You are going through a lot in your family. You're going through a lot with your mom and dad. You're going through a lot financially. You may be going through a lot with your extended family. You may be in a personal crisis chapter where you're trying to figure out some things in life. You may be in a relationship crisis right now. And I just want to encourage you and remind you that Jesus sees you. And maybe that's the message that somebody needed to hear on day number 5 of our week of prayer, is that Jesus sees you. And when you are seen, just like the man by the pool, when you are seen, it is an acknowledgement of your worth and your value. So even though you may feel like an invisible child of God, you are not. And you are seen, and you are worthy, and you have so much value that God has placed in your life. So this man, his miracle, I believe, started when he was seen by Jesus. So Jesus asks him this question, and he asked him this question. He says, "Do you want to be made well?" And I think this is an interesting question. I was recently doing a podcast interview. I've got a podcast called Rise and Lead that is being downloaded in almost 100 countries around the world. And one of the guests I had on my podcast was the CEO of Verizon. And she has a huge, expansive network of influence globally. She is personal friends with the CEO of Pfizer, leaders who are working on the vaccines for the pandemic. And when I was having this conversation with the CEO of Verizon, I said, what advice would you give any up and coming leaders? And she said, here's the advice that I would give up and coming leaders. Decide what you want. Don't let somebody else decide that for you. You need to decide what it is that you want for your life. What do you want for your relationship with God? What kind of relationship do you want with your family, with your community? How much do you want to maximize your academic opportunities at Pacific Union College? And what do you want to do with your life? She said, decide what you want and then go after it. And even if you hit the mark or you don't hit the mark, you are going to learn along the way. So just a little piece of advice for all you up and coming leaders. From the CEO of Verizon, decide what it is that you want in your life and go after what you want. So Jesus asked this man who was sitting by the pool, do you want to be healed? And I thought a lot about that question. Why would Jesus ask this man a question that seems like such a no-brainer question? Of course, I want to be healed. That's why I'm here. But I just want to push a little bit on that response. Did he really want to be healed? And the reason I begin to think about that is consider the man's daily routine. Somebody else had to get him dressed in the morning. Somebody else had to take care of his hygiene routines. Somebody had to carry him to the pool and lay him in his spot. Somebody had to check on him during the day. Somebody had to bring him home in the evening, get him ready for bed. So even though he came for healing, he had a life, and hear me on this, that was very comfortable in routine. And there are often times when our comfort becomes a detriment and a roadblock to our calling. Let me say that again. God is calling you to something amazing in your life, but there are many of you that are hearing me right now. You're too comfortable, and you're not willing to give up comfort to be stretched and growing and step forward into what it is that God has for you in your life. If you are going to embrace your God calling, you are going to be uncomfortable. Let me say that again. If you are going to embrace your God calling with your life, you will be uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. And so my challenge for you, even in the middle of this message, are you willing to go beyond your comfort zone? Are you willing to let go of what has been comfortable with your routines so you can grow to your next level and you can embrace the calling that God has for you in your life? So Jesus asked this guy, do you want to be made well? He didn't say yes. And you're like, I can't believe it. Why would he say that? Instead of just responding, Jesus, I want to be healed, his response, he gave Jesus an excuse. And he said, well, every time that I try to get to the water, somebody is there ahead of me. And the belief was that when the water was rippled up, there was a miracle healing that could take place if somebody got into the water. So instead of just telling Jesus, yes, I want to be healed, he gave him an excuse. And he said, well, I can't ever get to the water to experience the healing that I am longing for. And I wonder how many of us, Jesus is waiting for us to decide what we want. And Jesus is waiting for us to say, I'm willing to lay my excuses down so I can embrace the calling that you have, that Jesus has for your life. And so this man, instead of saying yes, he just gave Jesus an excuse. Here's what you don't see Jesus do. You don't see Jesus engaging in the man's excuses in a conversation. You don't see the scripture telling about Jesus getting down on the man's level in laying on the floor or sitting by the mat and saying, you know, I never thought about that excuse before. That's a really good one. Let me hear a little bit more about that excuse and about the roadblock. You don't see Jesus giving time and attention to excuses. What you see Jesus do is you see Jesus declaring the man's next move and calling him out of comfort and moving him forward. So Jesus, as he hears the man's excuse, Jesus tells the man, get up, take up your bed, and walk. I think Jesus has that same invitation for us today. Many of us, we are sitting in comfort, and we have been giving excuse after excuse in our life, especially in 2020 and 2021 in the first few months. Think about all the problems we could focus on in the last year. And I believe problems are real, and I'm not discounting problems, but there is also so much potential where often we only see problems. And when we only focus on problems, we end up giving God excuses instead of stepping forward by faith. So Jesus tells this man, he said, get up, take up your bed, and walk. And this guy, that mustard seed of faith, all of a sudden begin to take root. And that's all it takes. I mean, we already have the faith that has been given to us by Jesus to step forward out of comfort, to lay excuses down, and to move forward in our calling. So this man, that mustard seed of faith began to take root in his life. And you can imagine all of a sudden his body that has been atrophied before, all of a sudden blood begins to flow, and parts of his body that had laid dormant for 38 years begin to see new life, and veins begin to move with new pathways, and life is beginning to flow throughout this man's body. And you can imagine him saying, I'm feeling something different. I'm believing something different. I think that I can actually get up and move. And so as his body begins to be empowered by the miracle of Jesus, and that seed of faith is taking root, he says to himself, I'm going to try to get up. Like, I'm going to actually take a step. And so he takes a step, and all of a sudden he is seeing this scene by the pool from a vantage point that he has never seen before. And he's seeing people he's never seen from that angle. And I imagine, even though he knew that he wasn't supposed to be carrying his mat on the Sabbath, that there wasn't supposed to be healings on the Sabbath, I believe there was a quiet little pool party that took place by the pool of Bethesda, where this man, who had been an invalid for 38 years, was now healed. And I don't know if he celebrated out loud, if he celebrated in his heart. If it was me, I would be doing a little pool party dance around the pool, telling people about what had just happened in my life. And so this man was healed, and God gets the incredible glory through this miracle performed by Jesus. And the word begins to spread about the love and the attention and the miracles and the ministry of Jesus. That doesn't come without resistance, but Jesus is known and his ministry is expanded because of what has happened there at the pool of Bethesda. How do we apply this to our life? I want you to think about, just as the man was asked by Jesus, do you want to be healed? I want to ask you, what do you want with your life? Like, what do you want with your life with you and Jesus? What do you want with your academic life? What do you want with your purpose, with the plan that Jesus has for you? What do you want with your life? And are you willing to surrender that life to Jesus and lay down the excuses? And what are some of the excuses? My past is too complicated. I'm not articulate enough. I don't have enough experience. I don't have the gifts. I don't have the abilities. I've been abused. I have been left. I have been abandoned. This is a turning point in your life during this week of prayer, day number 5, where you have an opportunity to lay down your excuses, to step out of your comfort. And excuses are very comfortable if we've been making them for a long time, but to step out of our comfort zone and say, Jesus, I'm willing to let go of comfort so I can embrace your calling. And that's the opportunity that we have. And so if you and I are serious about wanting to thrive again, we need to have the courage to lay down our excuses, to receive the strength that comes from God that we're going to need to lay those excuses down, to step out of our comfort zone so we can embrace the calling that Jesus has for us. If you and I are going to thrive again, we must be willing to lay our excuses down.